Hey guys, Santoli here, and we're here with friends who can introduce themselves now.
I'm Joey.
I'm Ryan.
Menzo.
So we decided 5 minutes ago at almost 11 o'clock on Friday night, we're going to do a tier list for Master Duel. Talking about the next DC Cup and what you want to play if you wish to play that, or just if you're coming back to the Master Duel, what decks are going to be viable options. So this is completely unscripted, so we're going to have lots of arguments going on about what we think is good, especially Joey because his deck choices are awful. But
Ryan and Santoli don't know what decks are good and what decks are bad, and what their pet decks are.
Our pet decks are always good. So getting started, Snake Eye, obviously in the best deck category. I don't think anyone's going to argue with this. You just got Fiendsmith cards and Gravers at 2. Doesn't change much. And we also have the Asmina cards. This thing's like by far the best deck. You're building the beat. The whole meta is revolving around that. Do any of us have any other opinions about how this deck is somehow bad?
That deck is so unbelievably good.
Yeah, routinely you can beat 2 or 3 hand traps. I think if people are playing Retaliating Sea and Master Duel specific this deck, like in high elo, like the deck is obviously crazy.
Mm-hmm. That's the one silver bullet this deck has. Like if everyone's playing Retal, it gets worse, but like ignoring Retal and that whole like metagame shift, the deck is just clearly the best in a vacuum.
But if people do, like, if it gets more mainstream, there are some lines that play around it. Because right now, probably the correct way, if you're going turn 1, is to lead Witch for, like, the Azamina stuff, because it plays better into, like, Maxi and everything that's not Droll. But maybe if everybody's maining Retaliating, so you might, like, if you have, like, a Snake Eye card, you might start with that first, because it's better into Retaliating Sea.
I think the fact that I'm saying Snake Eye is good enough to show how broken it is. All right, on to one of the pet decks of mine, Centurion. I think overall this is a fine option. At the end of the day, like you do need a lot of hand traps to be able to beat Snake Eye. This also doesn't lose to a lot of the tech cards that are being played. It's chummies, it's good to Max C, it's good into Retaliating. And if we do not have the full pack reveal, so if we get the new cards out that came out in Rotor Primus, it'd be very good. But I think it's fine. It's nothing special, but it's one of the more functioning hand trap decks. Would either crush my dreams right now.
So the one thing I do want to say is I do not think the deck is fine into Maxi. I think Fua it's probably okay. I think the other issue too is if you don't draw enough non-engine, the pure Snake Eye deck and the Fire King deck can just easily beat you when they go second. But the deck plays a bunch of hand traps, has a decent Tenpai matchup. I think it's fine.
Yeah, deck is okay. You're not putting yourself at an advantage by playing it, but it's okay.
Yeah, that's probably nicest things you guys have ever said about my pet deck.
Enzo, were you saying something?
Goated deck.
Oh god, no.
You heard it here.
No.
Moving
by
on.
the way, we should sort the tier list by like each tier. You know what I mean?
We'll do that as we're doing it.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
So moving on to Fiendsmith controls, so whether you play with Bishops, whether you play with cash cards, whatever else. The one thing they can keep in mind is we don't have Necrocrypt or Lacrima in the form of the little Lacrima that's out in the TCG. We do have the Fusion, so it does change things that way. Overall, I think this is a very me-style deck, and I'm not playing it because you just don't have enough actual engine cards in the deck to function. You need more substance in the deck. You can't just truly play 40 hand traps or 32 hand traps and 8 Fiendsmith cards. You need a little bit more. And without Necrocrypt is a massive hit to the deck. I'm inclined to put this in ass just because like you need more.
I would put it there as well.
Yeah. I mean, not having Lacrima or Necrocrypt like just puts it.
It's not a functioning deck.
Yeah.
Also, too, like something to keep in mind is like in the TCG, right? If you draw Tract because of the girl Lacrima, you can quote unquote do some combos still. Tract by itself in Master Duel literally does nothing.
If we get Lacrima next set, obviously things are going to change, but down here for now until we get more substance. White Forest, as I mean, a Fiendsmith. So there is a big pile deck going on. It's not a big pile deck. It's 40-ish cards, but it is all 3 of those engines combined, where you're still doing these kind of crazy end boards. It's like the White Forest, both trap set, Baron, if you tag out, also plus Fiendsmith combo. Most of any of the individual engines will get you everything, which are lines we haven't really seen in TCG just because no one's really explored it. But it is one of those decks that took off in the OCG and is being translated over to Master Duel. I'm inclined to put this deck in very good or fine. It just seems like worse than Snake Eye in every way. But the fact that you can at least compare it to Snake Eye in the sense that it's a generic combo deck still seems pretty good. And its end board is very, very good.
Deck is
Uh,
cute.
yeah, I think I'd put it in a very good tier. For the people that don't know, the way the deck, it combos with just like Engraver as well. You Beatrice Sen, the White Force level 2, and then Sprite Elf is legal in Master Duel, so you can bring it back that way. That's kind of how you combo. I would put it in very good as well, I think.
No.
Rescue Ace. So this is a deck that I don't think is being played much. And I think that, you know, the power level of Snake is just high, and this is not a hand trap deck. I put it in fine, probably, because this is a deck that still has a good end board, but like your going second options are just super limited.
I would put it there exactly as well. It is it's cool that it's cool that Engraver is full combo, like full Rescue Race combo with Beatrice and Princess. But it's worse than every other Fiendsmith deck because the amount of bricks that Rescue Race has to play means that it gets to play less hand traps. So you'd have to play like 50 cards or something, and that's strictly a disadvantage in a combo mirror. But the deck's playable. It's just not great.
Yeah, it also it
Yep.
just catches strays from everybody playing a million hand traps in their deck, and you can't play as much Dawn Engine in that deck.
For sure.
Voiceless. So I'm
Wow.
playing a lot of this on Master Duel. I'm putting this here. This deck has felt so
Thank
miserable to
you.
play. Listen. We got my one pet deck up pretty high. I'm not gonna.
This deck has been carried by Maxi for its entire existence. It's not a new thing.
I think that in formats where you don't need as many hand traps, this deck's actually not bad at playing into other mid-range boards. The issue is like you can't play into combo boards at all, and you don't want to play a lot of hand traps either. It's good in Maxi and the Chummies, but like that's all it has going for it.
I think the deck was the best that ever was last format with Tenpai because you just play like summon limit, there can only be one, and you get to go first. But yeah, I think this is exactly where I'd put it, actually carried by Maxi.
Yeah.
Next up is Flu. Flu still has a lot of consistency. It's been getting cards back, but this is not a deck I want to play in a combo format. I'm putting this at the bottom right now.
Not a functional deck.
Yeah, people are also main deck control now, and
Oh yeah, Troll super popular.
Oh yeah.
all the pots on Master Duel are either banned or at one, so Flu
Very
is
inconsistent.
complete ass.
Yeah.
Tell him, Enzo.
I really want to put
Enzo,
this carry
tell him
by
about Cash.
No,
because when you max and Flu, you're not drawing a hand trap, so you just die.
No,
Okay.
Maxi is like at its worst in Flunder because there's no hand traps, and but like, what are you gonna do? Dreaming Town and then Maxi them, and you can't nib. Like, what's the point?
Cash Tira. So this deck is massively hit on Master Duel as well. 2-1 Fenrir. I'm inclined to put this in.
It's probably still the best deck.
Or why is he the call? Fine. I'm almost carried by Maxi because this deck does play a lot of stun cards, and you know if you turn skip them, the actual regular monsters in the deck are strong. If you give them a turn to actually set cards and get to revise, so it is very punishing. But I don't think it's much better than that.
I would say if we're talking about pure Kashtira, it's like it's not really carried by Maxi, more so carried by winning Viral and activating Macrocosmos.
I mean, getting a turn off Maxi, I think, is similar.
Yeah, I think that's good enough. I think also because we didn't put Fossil Dynastan on here, we might as well mention. Fossil Dynastan is kind of in the same vein. Like, if it doesn't draw Maxi, it can never go second ever into anything.
Yeah, even if they play random board breakers, the deck really struggles. Like even if you draw like multiple super polys or whatever, you just lose them. The only redeeming quality I would say is Cash Theater or Unicorn is really good if people are playing the Azamina stuff because of how tight the extra deck is, and Birth is really good against like track and stuff. So
yeah, the problem is those decks are only good if your opponent is not comfortable playing against them. Really, against good players, they're just so much worse.
Moving on to Sky Striker. So the blind second version is I think what is more popular. The issue is that it is somewhat hard to crack the boards of Snake Eye, to say the least. And I think that one, you're not doing it consistently enough. Two, I think that if you're building everything for Sky Striker, you have like across the board and some other random stuff like you sit down versus Voiceless or like race they resolve 4, and it can be hard if you're not drawing specific good cards against matchups. Also, this is just worse than Tenpai in every way. I'm inclined to put in fine. We're putting it right at the bottom.
I would put it in the fourth tier probably. I don't think it's ass.
It's not Okay, I mean, obviously, I'm a little biased, but I think it's probably after Rescue Race. Like, it's fine. It's doable. Like, if we're talking about this in the context of a DC Cup or wanting to get to Master or, like, playing ranked, like, all of those goals are achievable. It's just difficult. But, I think most of your matchups are winnable. Like, you're not playing Maxi or Fua because they lose to Ash, called by Crossout. And that's also why I would hesitate to put it in the Maxi carry column. But it's fine. Like, you can beat Snake Eye, it's just tough. I would not say it's favored, because Snake Eye is just that close to tier 0 in Master Duel right now. But it's not... I wouldn't say it's nearly as bad as something like Flunder.
I think the one thing I will say as well is if you're not trying to go for a rank 1, you're just trying to hit Master 1, where people aren't playing optimally or they start panicking when Briggers get thrown at them, it feels a lot better. Like, you could definitely get rewarded by opponents making mistakes as opposed to, good players who are a bit more comfortable doing max time, taking risks, or using breakers effectively. Or using the plays to play around breakers effectively.
Yeah. The issue with Striker too is just even if you crack their board or whatever, you could just easily lose to the non-engine everybody's playing right when you choose to go second. Like, you could just lose to them drawing Droll when they go first.
Droll's a huge issue for this deck. Honestly, I could see putting it ahead of Fiendsmith Control, because I think it's better than that, but it's not great.
Yeah, I think it's fine. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Damn,
All
that sucks.
Your pet decks are near mine.
one day.
Actually, it's below mine.
One day.
Melodious. This is another just trap control deck. The problem is that unlike Centurion, where it doesn't do well into the chummies or to Maxi or to Retaliant, I think it's a bit worse position despite the fact that it has a bit higher of a push. It's on Sonato and 2-card hands with Soul or playing through more hand traps. I think I would probably put it in between Centurion and Race. I do think it's a bit worse just than Centurion, basically how it's positioned into all the tech cards. But it's still a hand trap deck and it still does that effectively.
I actually would put it in Ass because I think that the board is actually crackable now that you can put up an Omni Negate with the Azamina stuff, and then later summon Desiree with the area as well to negate the area. And it also just catches a random stray from Retaliating Sea, and it's just kind of an inconsistent deck to begin with. I think the deck is Ass. Sorry, Herman.
That's a good point, actually, that Desiree beats Arya.
Yeah, like, if you're, like, say they just draw just Engine, right? If you just go, like, Azamina spell, summon the Omni Negate, and then just do your regular combo, where you just have Desiree, Promethean, Flamberg, like, you could just negate the area and actually just completely crack the board and beat them still.
Yeah, this deck might suck.
Okay. Sorry, Herman.
Sorry, Herman. Love Herman. I think the deck is super
No, it's better than Sky
No,
Striker.
but we're putting it here so his pet decks are worse than ours. Anyways, moving on.
No, it's better than Sky Striker. The video has to have integrity.
That's not
Let's
what
go.
my channel's about. As for my Pendulum combos, the fact that Village got hit, I think, is somewhat problematic because it's not even like an auto win versus all the Tenpai decks now, and the fact that like every combo deck up here is just better, like in every way form. Like I think it can go here. Like if you win the Diral, yeah, you're gonna do degenerate stuff. Like if you're not winning the Diral, you're not winning the game.
Yeah.
It's either Ass or carried by Dyro, in my opinion. Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
I think Voiceless might be a little bit better, because at least from my understanding, Voiceless Voice decks have maybe three more hand traps for going second. But
Yeah, like-
both decks do not impress me. They're both go first decks.
Like, Maxi, Fool, and Droll are good against... All three of those cards are good against the Pendulum deck. Like, at least, Droll is situationally good against Voiceless when it goes first, right? Like, it could be good, but Maxi and Fua suck. But those cards are actually good against the Electrobite deck. I think the Voiceless deck is probably better, for sure.
But if you lose the Diral to Pendulum, you're also panicking.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the whole time, if you lose the roll to Pendulum and they're comboing you, in your mind, at least for me, all I'm thinking is, there's no way this guy's ever beating me going second, ever.
Yeah, that's the only thing I think of. You're so lucky.
Yeah, like, there's no way this guy would ever beat me going second. No, 0% chance.
Alright.
Alright, next up, the other fire deck from last year that we all hated, Tenpai. So there are two kind of popular versions of it. One is being the board break, plays all Sky cards, all breakers, similar to my Nats list if you check that out. And it's just like, yeah, full combo, I'm just going to crack it, then play 6 breakers, summon Chandra, and kill you. The other is kind of more standard, 6 Chummies, 2 max hand traps, and trying to stop your opponent's board. And even though you need 2-3 hand traps to stop Snake Eye, you will have 2-3 hand traps a lot of the time. So I think even though the playstyle is different, I think the power level is somewhat similar-esque enough. I'm inclined to put this probably second best deck. I think that it's a little bit less dependent on Wind and Die Roll than White Forest. And I think it's still Tenpai. Like it bullies so many decks on this tier list. Like White Wind's very good because of just the fact of how good the card quality is. But if you're losing die rolls to some of these other decks, you are kind of in a sad position where Tenpai, I think you're just really happy to play against a lot of the lower power decks where you can just plow through them every single game going second.
It's just.
Oh yeah.
Go on. I was just gonna say, I think it's the clear second best deck. Like we could put it in best deck, but there is still a gap between it and Snake Eye, especially because Tenpai is much less consistent in Master Duel now. A lot of your hands pass to Imperm or Ash, which is problematic because that didn't used to be the case.
Yeah.
I think it's the second best deck. I do think there is some nuance to playing against the Tenpai decks nowadays still because it plays so much less engine. Like maybe if they Perilia you and you have an impermanent hand, it might just be better just to pass, right? Because it doesn't leave you open to something like Forbidden Droplet if you have like Veil or Imperm. Or maybe them drawing 2 ways to kill you through 1 Imperm is not super easy for that deck as well. Also, I think the hand drop version is slightly better because when you're playing cards like Fua, Maxi, and Perilia, they'll use Ash Blossom on their turn, so they won't have it for your turn. Because Ash is just game against the Tenpai deck. Like, the engine just sucks, so.
Okay. We have a lot less than I thought we would, which is surprising.
Right?
Moving on to the Chimera Fusion deck. Some play this as medium, some play this with Fiend Smith, some play with both, some play with neither. Just kind of Fusion Pile S decks. I think that these decks are very good at going first. I don't think they're particularly amazing at going second. And they definitely don't have a lot of room for non-engine. But I will say that I think they're actually better going first into a lot of the tech cards of the format. In the form of like the Chummies, because you'll get your Chimera Fusion set up with minimal draws. So I think it's a bit better going first into the tech cards than expected. Retaliancy is still a problem. So I'm inclined to put this somewhere in the top 6 right now. Like I think it's better than everything here. I don't particularly know where to put it.
I fear it a little bit more than Rescuers, I think. Because that deck, when it goes first, can be completely unfair.
Yeah, the deck is crazy, and then they play like Barrier Statue and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Of the Abyss, and I think you also get a slight buff by people not really knowing what you're doing or how to hand trap this Chimera deck and stuff. So
I think part of the reason you don't hand trap it is they don't know what extenders drawn. Like it's even like it's a knowledge check. It's just like a list check. Like sometimes they just start playing random cards that get you there, or you think you can crack a board and there's a dark barrier statue coming down, and they do some other weird boards. I think like it's just the flexibility, but it's also somewhat frustrating. But I guess it's still too worrisome going second when you lose a die roll to put it above Centurion.
It's really strong going first. I don't know how it's ever cracking a half board though, for the most part.
Going second into mid range, this deck destroys it. But against a combo deck that does its board, it's pretty cooked.
I actually don't think it destroys mid range decks that well, because I think that once you hit, even if I have limited interruptions, once I hit some of the things, it's really hard for the deck to game shot out of nowhere. Like they really do specific cards resolve where if they have 1-2 cards left in hand, even if they can make a play, they're usually not enough to kill or set up enough of a board that my follow-up's not going to kill it.
On the other hand, I raise you Guardian Chimera, which is broken.
But that should never really resolve, is my point. Like you usually have to do that early, because if you do it later, then you don't have the card advantage to do it. And then like if I just stop it early, then you don't have amazing pushes back.
Yeah, I just mean like it really only against mid-range decks, like especially if they're playing like Poly Patchwork or just Hard Draw Chimera Fusion, you can get decimated.
This is also a deck that gets hit by Duel, so I'm kind of put it here. I think it has a lot of hate going for it.
Yeah, I think it has a lot of hate. Wait, so Sentinel, you're saying when you're playing a mid-range deck, you get into more of a grind game against the Chimera deck? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying when you play, so if I make a mid-range deck board and I'm playing against like White or a Snake Eye, as soon as one card resolves, I'm starting to panic because that card gets them so much. I do not have the same feeling for Chimera. It's like
Really?
when one card resolves, it doesn't snowball the same way in decks, especially because they.
I feel the opposite.
You think it's snowball's better than Snake Eye?
I think no. I'm thinking if Sword Knight or the Baphomet resolves for the most part, I actually think that deck can outgrind any mid-range deck. To be
Yeah,
honest,
the game pretty much ends if you're playing
Yeah.
mid-range and your opponent resolves any of those cards.
The thing is, I think there's not enough good ways that you can not use those as bait all the times.
What were you saying, Enzo?
Yeah, what were you saying, Enzo?
I mean, I was saying like yeah. I feel like if you those cards just resolve, like it's pretty good. Pretty much.
Yeah, like unless you have something like
much win, yeah.
Appaloosa, right? No, I think it's still fine. I think that it's fine there. It definitely is much weaker because it can't play as much non-engine as like the top decks, right? So like you don't have a chance of high rolling, like imperming a Snake Eye Ash and then passing as much, right? So like I think it's fine where it is, but it's really good going first.
Okay,
Mhm.
we'll keep it here. Next up is Bell. So this deck has been hit a few times on Master Duel Raid. There's 2 Throne, Direct Mechanic Beast, 2 Opening, and then Phantom, as well as we don't have any TCG exclusive. We do not have the access to what's the one, Joey, that the TCG exclusive that we play in this deck?
In the Yubel
Aerial Leader. We don't have Aerial Leader.
Yeah.
So Tract is not a good 1-card combo in this deck. And so I'm inclined to put it like fine. The one benefit of this compared to a lot of other the decks, maybe somewhere higher in the fine tier, is that this deck still actually has room to play a lot of non-engine. More than White Force. So you are still trying to play a hand trip deck that has the ability to combo strongly.
I think Phantom's at 1.
Is that 1 now?
Yeah.
No, Phantom is at 2 in National.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, I swear
It's
I swear this guy only summoned one Phantom against me the other day.
Phantom is at 1 in the TCG, but it's at 2 on National.
Do not find people who cannot afford UR Dust Ryan. That is not nice.
But no, dude, whatever, man.
Now we're getting to the arguing. I'm inclined to put this somewhere here, perhaps still below
It is-
Centurion, because I think
It is without a doubt better than Centurion. It's still Yubel.
I'm putting it right behind Tenpai. I think it's actually better than the White Forest deck. Because
I also
Really?
have it about that too.
Yeah, so my reasoning is obviously everybody knows the Yubel board is better than the Snake Eye board, completely unbreakable, etc. But that's not the reason why I think it's good. The reason why I think it's good is that like with the bricks, like you obviously played more bricks than you play in the Snake Eye deck because the Snake Eye deck has Flamberg, Snake Eye Diabel, the Asamina spell. Like you obviously play those bad Yubel cards you don't want to draw, but you still have the chance of like if they don't standby phase Fu or Maxi you can still just high roll them and just turn one like insta summon a Phantom and you can just instantly win the game right there. So like I think that although it's obviously much worse than Snake Eye, it can play a decent amount of non-engine. Obviously, a lot of the good cards are hit, but I actually think it is. If Snake Eye was not a thing and you didn't want to play Tenpai, I would probably play Yubel. I think it's the second best deck.
Okay, my main concern is clunkiness, or not so much clunkiness, but clunkiness with weak hands combined. But I think that is, I'm not overly going to argue this position here. It is still Yubel.
Yeah. Just one more thing on that deck. The issue with Yubel and why it's like kind of getting like not doing quite as well is it has a really bad Tenpai matchup because that deck plays so many hand traps, and Perilia is really really good against the Yubel deck as well. Like in addition to Fu and Maxi as well. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think one thing to keep in mind as well with Master Duel is I think like in terms of tier list, most of us are thinking like for a DC Cup or whatever the true meta should be, right? And usually that isn't reflected super well by what people are playing on rated or like in practice rooms even, because sometimes people just don't really want to play the deck they're going to play for the cup because they'd rather play something more fun when there's no stakes. So even though we might not see much of certain decks and we're seeing a lot more of others, it doesn't necessarily like correspond to how good they really are.
Yeah, for us more so, I think we're kind of building the tier list like what we would play during the DC Cup, right? Most likely, or like what we think is probably like the strongest deck. Like if Snake Eye wasn't a thing, I think Yubel would be definitely something I would consider.
Yubel is still a monster deck for sure.
Yeah, I think it's quite good. It is clunky because like Sandul was saying, like Throne, DBB, Opening, Phantom are all at 2, and people are playing a ton of hand traps. And I think it's had a bad Tenpai matchup since last format, and now they still play about the same amount of hand traps. So.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Engraver is something for this deck though.
Yeah, it does help with the board is never getting broken if it's made correctly. So usually
Okay.
no chance.
Moving on to Labyrinth. So another one is Ryan's pet deck, so we're gonna put below mine. It's hard for me to judge this. I think that it just has such a bad Snake Eye match, and until a lot of these combo decks, like you just don't have viable ways of going second, that it's problematic. I think the trap version is probably better than the furniture version, just because like you don't have the ability to play slow or to go for value games with the furniture, and you really just have to flip trap cards to win turn one and really stun them out. And going second, it's more like you break a board going second by setting 5 than half hand trapping them with like two of them. I think this is fine, maybe. Like it trap cards are still powerful. It can win going first, but I'm not overly optimistic about this deck.
Oh my god, like the trap version and the furniture version both have glaring issues. They also each have huge strengths. Like the trap version, for example, is probably the single deck with the best Tenpai matchup. Like they're screwed basically. But I think the optimal version is probably a mix of both. Like if you really were dead set on playing Lab, I would probably play Furniture to boost your consistency with Vital and Fua, but you wouldn't play Ash. Like you're only playing high impact hand traps, and then you play a mix of the good traps too. But it's like you're clearly putting yourself at a disadvantage if you try any version of this deck. So while it's not unplayable, it's just weird because you don't really like
bottom of
do any
fine.
favors.
I would put it exactly right there, essentially, because I think
it's good there.
I think I would probably play the trap version. I think that a lot of times people just know how to do their combo. Like, say you're playing against a Snake Eye person, they do their full combo or whatever. If you have the capacity to set 4 or 5 trap cards, maybe try and go battle phase, force the SP early, and then set some traps, and then make your opponent show that they still know how to play the game, I think you actually still have a decent chance winning there. And if they don't know how to play around Equation Cannon, or if they can't, you can just win for free when you go first as well. Like, I think it's fine, to be honest. I like it right there.
Yeah, I will just comment one thing. When this deck became popular as like Math Lab, that was when Snake Eye was popular, but the Azumina cards were never legal at the same time. And that one extra negate as Sylvia being on the board, compared to in the past when it was just the Desiree negate you had to contend with, is like a massive difference. So it definitely is worse than, the perception.
Okay, I'm happy with it here. Branded. So there are a bunch of hits on this, like 2 Aluber, 2 opening, 1 fusion.
Aluber just got put to 3.
Okay.
I think Aluber and opening both just went to 3, actually.
I'm still inclined to put this in ass. I don't understand how this ever goes second.
What?
Okay. Bottom of ass?
No, I'll let you finish.
Yeah, finish your thought.
One of the issues is your tallying season in the format. I think this goes. One of the other issues is that you have to play a lot of large piles in this deck. Like Chimera deck is usually around 40 cards. You're seeing max C and the hand traps you see more consistently. I don't think this deck sees them as much because you have to play a larger engine. And it just gets so many streams. Like, I think it's not amazing into any of the draw cards in the form of Chummy or Maxi. It's fine, but it's not amazing. Retaliancy completely destroys this deck. And it's consistency I want.
Alright, Jerry, your thoughts?
So I'm actually pretty scared to play against this deck when I'm going second. I think it has a really high ceiling if they know how to pilot the deck. Obviously, it would be unfair to mention Melodious getting cooked by Retaliating C and not mention Despia because it's obviously crazy against that deck as well. But people are also main decking Bestials as well, which also hurts the Despia deck. But I honestly think the deck... Maybe I just have so much PTSD from playing in the DC Cup of actual really good Despia people that know how to pilot that deck correctly. And the deck is also just a crazy skill check if you don't really know what's going on or what fusions they're trying to summon or stuff like that. And then I think it also has a really high ceiling, like a capacity to win going second, right? Like if it has like Grass, Thrust, Talons, stuff like that in like a 55, 60 card deck, something like that. I actually think those are one of the few decks that has a legit chance to crack the Snake Eye board. I would probably just put it at the bottom of fine, probably. Near Lab, probably.
It's better than Lab and then like right here.
What do you think, Enzo? I want to hear Enzo.
I think
he hasn't spoken much.
Bro, like that deck plays so many broken cards, bro. Like it literally plays like all the broken cards, bro. Like I'm not even trolling.
Yeah, like
I feel like it would be pretty high to find. Like it was like second.
I think branded is like what's the word? Branded is a literal perennial top 5 deck in Master Duel in any format. I think.
The fact that I barely see on the ladder right now is what really makes me
No,
question
dude,
the strength
it doesn't
of it.
matter.
No, but like the problem is that like this is a deck people love to play, and it's just nowhere. Like, I just think it's so horribly positioned.
I do think it's badly positioned. I agree with that though.
I'm fine playing it here. Like I think it's fine. It is fine. It is playable, but I would not recommend it.
Dude, you're crazy. It's like probably better than White Forest.
I think it's.
You think it's better than White
really
Forest?
I don't agree with that. I would not put it.
I think it's better than White Forest. Maybe even Yubel.
I think it's worse than the Chimera deck, to be honest.
No, I think Branded is literally unbelievably good.
I would probably put it in first or second in the fine options. I don't think it's anywhere as good as the actual Azamina fusion decks now with Beatrice and shit. Like those decks are just so broken.
I think you guys are maybe overestimating how good Retaliating C is. Because it's good, but it's not auto win against Branded.
I disagree with you strongly.
Especially because they play Vital, or sorry, they play Talents and Thrust. Like, and like Joey was saying, I think one major selling point for me is that this deck doesn't have to play. This deck can play the Fua and Maxi in a game. Like, that's terrifying. You can play Fua and Maxi in your 60-card Branded deck, and then still have Evenly and Droplet and Eclipse if it doesn't work. Like, you just get to play everything broken in your deck. This deck's so good going first and second with Engine.
Yeah,
I think one of the issues with this, or at least my perception of the deck, is every one of my pet decks, other than Voiceless, just destroys this. So,
I mean, sure, but
yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying it's a power splitter. I'm just justifying my. Opinion of it.
The deck has crazy power level. I think right now, like the power level on Master Duel is pretty high with the Azamina and the Fiendsmith stuff. And then the non-engine people are playing. Like Droll is not bad against Despia. Well, unless they go like
it's always been
draw phase. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not bad. And then Bestials are a solid, like a solid counter pick against that deck. Yeah, like I'm fine with putting it.
If you ever draw one or two Bestials even going second against Branded, most of the time you're correct.
I don't believe that at all. I'm putting it here. Centurion is better
than. Dude, it's better than Yubel.
No, I don't agree with that.
We'll just keep going up with this deck.
No, I don't agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's fine. It's a discussion, but we can disagree.
Okay, Fire King. So the other Snake Eye deck. The issue with this deck is that it doesn't use any of the other new cards quite as well as Snake Eye. Plus, this deck is already a bit more clunky, which you got in exchange for the higher ceiling. But now that we already have the higher ceiling because you have the other two engines you put in Snake Eye, it is a bit worse. That being said, I think that, if you're playing Fire King over the Fiendsmith cards and you're playing something like Azamina, Fire King, Snake Eye, very solid deck. I'm inclined to put in very good. I don't think we should go crazy with this. Somewhere amongst the combo decks up here. Below Tenpai still, naturally.
Yeah, it's a Snake Eye deck, so it's automatically better than White Forest. I also don't think you need to play Azamina cards in this deck, because the ceiling is so high without them, just with the Fire King cards already. So I don't think it necessarily has issues into Droll and Retal in that manner. Like, Droll can be hit or miss against this deck still, but I would say it's either where it is now or better than Yubel. It's still worse than Tenpai. One of the two.
I think the deck is solid.
It is one of the devices, bro.
If you remember the TCG Vegas event last year where people were playing Fire King and they were playing Pure Snake Eye, the reason why the Pure Snake Eye deck is better is because when you get hand trapped, you're not drawing clunky Fire King cards that might not either stop your opponent or allow you to play more like the Pure Snake Eye deck. And I think the other thing too is if you choose to play the Azamina stuff in the Fire King version, right, where you're like banishing original or whatever to search Snake Eye Ash, the problem with that makes it worse than the Pure deck is that the Pure deck can always go into Moon to get Engraver, right? So you can get access to both engines. But if you're doing that in the Fire King deck, unless you already have a part of one of the engines already, you have to choose between one or the other. So, like, I think the board is better. You can play. I think it can play a little more non-engine. But yeah, I would probably put it either as good as Yubel or slightly worse than Yubel. I think right there is perfect. Yep.
So the main thing about the Fire King deck is that it loses the head-to-head against the pure deck because it has bricks in it, so it just has less hand traps. And both decks can essentially FTK each other when they go first. But in exchange for having the worst mirror, Fire King is better into almost every other deck on the list because its board is arguably better when it does less. And it going second is just a much stronger deck. Like, its engine is much more likely to push through. Like, Flunder is a good example. The pure deck probably can't beat Flunder when it goes second, and they have full setup. But the Fire King deck does pretty easily.
I think it's worse than Snake. Has a worse matchup against Snake Eye in the terms of me. I also think it has a worse Tenpai matchup because it can get hand trapped to death more often.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So I think it decent, better or same matchups otherwise, but considering the matchup against the best two decks, it's a bit worse.
Yeah, the Fire King deck is definitely better at going second, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with the Flunder thing, because I think you could summon the Omni Negate, try and play summon your guys in defense against.
No, but like, I mean, it's like
Flunder.
effortless.
It's easier. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Yeah, like the deck has always been better going second, but whether that's worth you playing more, I mean, it's just the debate of you can play more hand traps, though, right? And maybe you could just stop like the mid range decks as well. So, but obviously, Fire King is much better against a lot of the rogue decks. And also, something that is very valuable that people might not think of is a lot of people are playing Cashier Unicorn in their deck now. So if you hand trap somebody, and even if they stop them, if they rip 2 cards from your extra deck and you're playing the Azamina version, it might be really hard. But the Fire King version could care less, right? These are just some huge bodies.
That's a good point.
Moving on to another traditional Master Duel deck in the form of Tier. So most of these decks are 40 card Tier instead of the 60 card. Maybe a little bit more than 40. But it's played more in the sense of a mid-range deck. I think this deck is still solid. I don't think it's as good combo deck as any of the other decks up here, but the board's enough. In a lot of the cases, shuffles can be very obnoxious. It also does play the mini game of Maxi and Fuwa very well because you're able to, give 1 or 2 draws, set some traps, and then play in your opponent's turn. So I'm inclined to put this at the bottom of very good or at the top of fine. It's still a solid deck, but not quite overwhelming.
I think it's fine there, yeah.
I thought it was probably right behind White Forest.
Happy with this as well. Joy?
I think the deck actually gets a significant buff with the Fiendsmith stuff, because if they summon Beatrice, send something on their turn, and then they still are able to send something on your turn, like, you're just never cracking the board ever. I think that's a good spot. I think that deck is actually really good with the Fiendsmith stuff.
Not as good as the other combo decks, but it's scary.
I'm happy with it here. Sprite. So Sprite just got 2 more swap hogs back, so now it's 3 swap hogs and Ronin. There is no totally awesome. People do all kinds of different things with this level 2 deck. They do the combos with the Tri-Barricade cards, as well as just pure Sprite, Yubel Sprite. I'm inclined to put this like here. It's a functioning combo deck, but like there's nothing really amazing about it. I'm down to put it lower, but
this deck is kind of the definition of better win the die roll.
Yeah.
I
think it looks like I'm very well.
I think the deck is ass. The only thing I think that Sprite is good. The only thing I don't like about when I'm playing in Sprite is hand trapping the deck is just completely sucks. It's terrible. Yeah. But the thing too is it seems like even if they end on like their quote unquote like what they want to end with, like red, carrot, Sprite Elf, IP, like I still actually think you can still win some of those games still sometimes, to be honest. But yeah,
it's rare, but it happens.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe that's quality of Sprite opponents. I don't know who the best Sprite player nowadays is.
Probably Santoli.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The best Sprite duelist doesn't play Sprite anymore. Yeah, like at the highest, I would put. Go ahead, Enzo.
Sprite was the best deck in Tier format.
Yeah,
just so you guys know.
I agree. I agree fully.
Just so we're all on the same page.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's a decent spot. Like, it's definitely more consistent than Cash Tier. I don't think the deck is great, but yeah.
I think that's exactly where it belongs. If I was going to play a deck that could not get Imprimed or Veilered going first, but barely had a chance going second, I would play Pendulum. And Sprite is like that, but a little bit worse, is all.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Droll is actually a decent card against Sprite as well. To be honest, it's not terrible. They do
Droll's
obviously.
Average. It's not getting
it depends on the combo they're doing. Some hurt
Yeah.
more than others.
Yeah, if they're playing like Beaver and stuff, it might be worse. Yeah, I agree. But if they're playing more of the combo stuff, yeah.
All right. Ritual Beasts.
Uh,
Like I think one of the things is like yes, this deck has a maxi and a Fua issue. But the issue I have with that is that if that doesn't happen, every other hand trap is just completely awful versus this deck, other than Nib. But like if you're not drawing one of those, you're just getting completely obliterated going second.
I think you just need to win the die roll with this deck. You can't even crack a mid-range board, in my opinion.
You
I
can.
think-
Like if imagine you're going to DC Cup and you were promised you're gonna win 7 out of 10 die rolls. I think Ritual Beast is one of my top considerations then.
7 out of 10 die roll.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're trying to illustrate is this deck has an insane power disparity between when it goes first and second.
People are playing like Nibiru is not uncommon as well, and that's obviously the god card against this deck too. And
Yeah, you have basically 8 auto losses if you don't have
I think-
Eclipse or Called by or a Crossout or Ash.
I think Tenpai is a little less popular now too, and that buffed that deck a lot because it literally just has the god Tenpai matchup. I would just put it. I think it's around there or above Voiceless, about there. Yeah, I think that's fine.
For what it's worth, that deck does lose to Imprim and Valor and Ash basically as a part-time job. Like a normal thing, you Imprim, oh crap, fast.
Not when I play against it. Moving along to
Also on the Ritual Beast deck too, like Shifter is also just at 1 as well, which makes it
Voiceless is better than it for sure.
cool. Pet decks are going
Because
on.
Voiceless can't get maxi to forward.
All right. The Millennium deck, which is a stun deck, it's playing whatever floodgates they can find, macro, fissure, etc. Then just going first, activate Ankh, summon your guy, summon the board wipe, activate a floodgate. I think there's another deck that just gets carried by the die roll. I don't think it's particularly good at going second, and so I'm.
Really?
I mean, against any of the top decks, absolutely not.
I think that deck actually has some merit to it. It's not the worst.
I agree, but I think like going second is just so unfortunate.
I think anytime you have to play a deck that's 47, 48 cards because you literally don't want to draw one of the 5 pieces of his Exodia, the deck is pretty bad. I wouldn't put it in the ass tier, but I mean, they're playing stuff like super poly to try and quote unquote crack the board, but against any competent person ever, that's obviously just not going to be enough. And then you could just lose to your one continuous guy getting Ash Blossom as well, right? When you go first as well. I think they're probably, I think it's in the Voiceless Ritual Beast tier range, to be honest. Like, it just plays like Macrocosmos, Dimensional Fissure, Necro Valley. Like, it's just a fucking shit stun deck.
The one thing I will say though is the consistency of this deck is very good. You have like 18 ways to Ankh. Consistency is not the problem. You will generally always get to your end board. But the issue is that you're not always going to get to a floodgate with the end board, and sometimes you just die then. Like the end board by itself is not enough.
The end board is quite good when you have like just a little bit more with it, because spell trap negate and field wipe is like not trivial.
I think Ash is actually solid as long as you're correctly using it to floodgate the correct continuous card.
Yeah, the fact that you can't Ash Ankh is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, that's really good about it.
Yeah, but funny thing is you can actually steal their monsters with Flamberg because they're and Temple because they're continuous spells.
Gimmick Puppet. This deck is
ass. If we could combine ass and needs to win the die roll into one tier, it would be the Gimmick Puppet deck. Complete ass, degenerate deck's terrible. Like, I don't know. I don't think I've ever lost to this deck anytime I ever went first and did anything. So, like, they have to main deck cards like Skill Drain and stuff when they're already a go first deck anyways. Like, deck's completely terrible.
Just need an FTK. FTK is not, but not through hand traps. Like a nib, and everything goes downhill.
Droll also stops it from FTK.
Yeah.
Also, the bestials are not untrivial as well, right? Like if you have a targeting card and they send the baby, the one that doesn't leave target or whatever, like
the baby.
That is the baby.
Yeah, the baby is not bad.
Afmek.
Best.
Ooh, Enzo, thoughts?
No, yeah, we have to let Enzo take this one.
Like, so if you really think about it, like Circular is banned in TCG because it's so good. So like, it's coming next on the Master Duel because it's like one of the best decks.
So, like, should we put it before Snake Eye Ash or after?
It should probably have
I
a
think
tier
we
of its
should.
own above Snake Eye.
Oh shit! Make a new tier, Centurion.
It's Math Mech.
In the 30
Math
seconds,
Mech
you
here.
guys were spewing complete nonsense. My opinion went from Ash to Find. This deck is still super good going first. Obviously has a floor and the thing option, but you play so many tech cards. I think it's.
I'm putting it in.
I'm not actually as worried about losing Thyroid with Math Mech. I'm worried about getting Max Seed or Food. I'm not
I-
worried about losing Thyroid.
Oh my god, Fuwalo. Oh yeah, this
I
deck gets destroyed
disagree.
by
I
Fuwalos.
think the deck literally needs to win the die roll. It pretty much can't crack anything going second ever. But if you want to play it near the higher, in my opinion, of carried by Maxi / the high roll, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I think it can be right in front of Exodia, probably.
Okay, sure. I mean, it's the deck everybody hates to
That's
play
very
against
good.
on Master Duel too, right?
Alright.
Ryan, thoughts on the Zodiac deck?
I want to do spiel first. I think this deck
Yeah.
is very weird because it doesn't do anything. You make a Giant pass, you make a Zeus pass going second, but you just play so much on engine, and you're just immune to all the non-engine in the
I
format.
mean,
It's kind of like, and the other thing, it's very not clunky. The only thing that's problematic is you draw too many Zoo monsters, but like you're not having any pieces that are conflicting with each other that do nothing. Like they're either a starter or they're a tech card.
to be a little bit realistic, the way that I guess just a group of people in this call would build this deck is very non-standard. Like when Centoli's talking about like, oh yeah, you have tons of hand traps. That's not the normal way to play Zoo. Most people when they play Zoo on Master Duel go first and try to like flip Mistake or Macrocosmos or Deck Lockdown or like some absurd stuff. But if this deck I think is built correctly, like Centoli said, with a bunch of hand traps to try to minimize inefficiency and make sure you can still go second, I think it's actually pretty good.
Most people will just int crazy into the Dryden without having 2 or 3 pushes. Where like most of the time you can just wait as well. But yeah, I think it's probably like bottom of fine around the Math Mech range maybe.
Where do you want? I'm putting fine. I think it just does nothing fancy, but I think it's better than something like Lab. Like I feel more comfortable playing this in the long.
It's for sure better than Race, I think.
Better than the fusion decks or no?
Well, I think Branded should be much higher. I think it's probably better than Chimera, though, yeah. I also think it's better than Centurion, but because Zoo has literally ultimate immunity to any hand trap, and it does similar to what Centurion does.
Susie's broken.
I think we can do it like this. We'll put Brandon on top of fine.
Okay.
And then last deck is Blue Eyes deck that's coming out. There are no Primate cards, and so I'm just gonna put this here. It's unplayable. It hasn't come out yet, but I think that like without the Primate cards, those are the best cards in the deck. I hate playing Blue Eyes in TCG and not drawing a Primate card. I'm not gonna like it on Master Duel.
If they had the Primite cards, where would we put it though? Do you think in fine probably?
I think
It would be at least fine.
I think this is what the best hand trap deck if we get Purge and the Primate cards. That is not happening though, and so
Yeah, it's very hypothetical, but the deck has potential.
check back.
No, Blue Eyes, bro.
Yeah, I mean this looks good to be honest.
So a lot less arguing, I think, in general. I think the Branded actually ended up, which was our biggest talking point, ended up in.
I'm okay with Branded being there.
Like worse than Tier. I think it's worse than Tier. It's not unusual, reasonable to say.
I think those two decks are extremely comparable.
Yeah, so I think this is pretty reasonable. Overall, any thoughts? Last moment comments.
I'm glad they didn't do a new balance before the BC Cup. So like BC gives people time to prepare this like from now up until the next month without really changing anything.
Oh wait, Centoli, we forgot Salad.
Yeah, this is completely unplayable into every chummy in it, everything. Unfortunately.
Okay.
Damn.
I mean, I think it's like above Fiend Smith control, but I can go
Yeah,
right
after
beside,
Striker maybe.
right besides Toss, brother.
Herman is gonna be sick about Melodious in the ass tier. I can already see it.
I mean, Sylvia is a huge issue for that deck.
Oh, for sure.
There's a lot of issues. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, Ryan, Joy, and Enzo, and hope you guys enjoy this content. Let me know if you wish to see more of these. I plan on doing a TCG deck list coming out shortly as well. And remember, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.